Just a few weeks ago, the New York Jets hired Robert Saleh to be their next head coach. Robert Saleh, the former defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers from 2017 to 2020. During the time span where they had a significant chance at the Super Bowl and were a top 10 defense in the league, arguably top 5 for that entire span. I think this is a great move. First of all, out of all the coaches that got a job this offseason, I thought Robert Saleh was the best one. That includes over Urban Meyer. I know it's a little bit controversial, but I think he's going to have more success. Also, in terms of who I thought coming into the offseason was going to get a head coaching job, Robert Saleh was the second guy on my list behind Brian Daboll, who didn't end up getting a job. So it's a really good look for the Jets to go out and get a guy that a lot of people had at the top of their boards, and probably who the Jets had at the top of their board as their next head coach. Robert Saleh, first of all, he's a great defensive mind, being that he was the defensive coordinator for a top 10, top 5 defense. I think that goes without saying. Last season, they were completely riddled by injuries. I think there was a time period where they had most of their starters and even some of their backups unavailable for a couple of games. And the team still managed to finish top 15 in defense, which, in my opinion, and I think if you're smart, in your opinion as well, that shows coaching. That shows that the coach knows what he's doing, and that shows that the coach knows how to get the most out of his players. That brings me to another topic, that Robert Saleh can get the most out of his players. He's a fiery personality. He's very passionate about the game, and you can tell by watching him that he loves coaching. He definitely can get the most out of his guys because of his fiery personality and because I think he's going to be able to lead a locker room of 52 players, which means the Jets will not only get more players to play at a higher level, they will also get more players in the building, more good players in the building, because players on the Jets can convince those players to buy into Robert Saleh's culture. And that's something you saw with Jamal Adams when he was still on the Jets. He tried to recruit Yannick Ngakoue and a couple other players also. You saw with Richard Sherman trying to get Deshaun Watson to the Jets because he worked under Robert Saleh. He knows what sort of man Robert Saleh is, and he believes Robert Saleh is going to be a great head coach. So, in turn, he tries to get good players to have a better time and play under a good head coach. And above all that, he brought in a great coaching staff around him. He brought in Mike LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan's passing game coordinator in San Francisco, and the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, Matt LaFleur's little brother. And I think it speaks magnitudes to how good Mike LaFleur is that Kyle Shanahan tried desperately to keep this man the last couple of off seasons because he could have been in line for an offensive coordinator job. If you are desperately trying to be retained by one of the greatest offensive minds that the sport has ever seen, in my opinion, then you're doing something right. So Mike LaFleur, I think he is going to be a great offensive coordinator for Robert Saleh. And he also brought in Jeff Ulbrich, who, in his short time with the Falcons, actually, towards the back end of the year, had their defense improve even with that pretty terrible roster, at least on the defensive side of the ball. He lowered their total yards allowed per game from 350 to 275 when he took over as the interim defensive coordinator, and he allowed, I think, 10 to 7 less points. So he allowed somewhere between 24 and 27 points. Before he was hired, they averaged 34 points. So that's a significant jump. So you got a guy that can get the most out of his players. He can lead a locker room. He's a great defensive mind, and he brought in a good coaching staff around him. The only thing really that has to go right for Robert Saleh to end up 100% having success in the NFL is he needs to get his quarterback. And what do I mean by that? There's plenty of coaches in the league who have not had success because they haven't found their quarterback. Matt Nagy in Chicago, I think he's a pretty good head coach, and he's a great offensive mind. He has Mitchell Trubisky, and that is a significant handicap. To go as one example. Another example I want to say is Bill Belichick this year. Cam Newton just couldn't play up to his expectations through the second half of the season and even the middle of the season after battling COVID-19, which really ended up hurting Bill Belichick because his quarterback wasn't playing up to par, so he couldn't win games. So if Robert Saleh can get a good quarterback on his team, I think the Jets will be fine. As a Jets fan, I love the move, as do I love the move as an NFL fan. And I think the Jets finally got it right at the head coaching position. I know the last couple of hires have been rough, Adam Gase, Todd Bowles, but I think it speaks magnitudes to Robert Saleh had a great introductory press conference. Adam Gase had a terrible introductory press conference. Teams that coaches that have bad introductory press conferences usually don't have success at the NFL. That's why I'm also scared of how bad Nick Sirianni is going to be for the Eagles. And coaches that have good introductory press conferences often have a lot of success in the NFL, like guys like Frank Reich. So I think the New York Jets made the right hire in hiring Robert Saleh as the team's next head coach.